I've been watching Ghost Adventures since I was about 8, and I remember when they first introduced the SLS camera. About 11 years later, I've finally gotten around to building my own SLS camera, and here's how you can build it. Before I built it though, I looked online to see if I could just buy one. The problem was that most of the ones for sale were pretty expensive, usually between $300 and $600. Besides that, a lot of them were built from off-the-shelf parts, and it didn't really look very sleek, like the one from the show. The few that were custom designed and looked nice often seemed a bit unergonomic, and they seemed like they would become uncomfortable during a long investigation. So instead of buying one, here's what I was able to come up with. My first idea was to check Thingiverse and see if someone had come up with something that I could build a design off of. Unfortunately, I didn't find any all-in-one solution, but I did find these claw-style grips that could be used to attach a connect to the tablet. So I remixed the claw and mount to work with this tablet I found on Amazon. My design on paper looked cool, but it had a few flaws. Firstly, I didn't account for the battery pack, so there was nowhere to put it. Secondly, the Kinect protruded aggressively from the front of the tablet, which made it bulky and not very sleek. After looking at reference photos from other SLS cameras, I tried a different layout where the battery and Kinect were collinear with one another. This version looked much cleaner and had less empty space than the first one. However, after holding it for a while, I noticed a few more issues. The handle forced my wrist into an uncomfortable position. Specifically, it required a fairly large amount of radial deviation, which meant my wrist muscles had to remain constantly engaged just to hold the camera level. The mounting system wasn't particularly strong either. The handle was secured by being threaded directly into the plastic, which obviously wouldn't hold up in a real ghost adventure. To solve that issue, I found these T-nuts and used these instead. A linear rail T-nut sits inside a cavity in the print and sandwiches the handle against the plastic. I chose this particular nut because the flange spreads the load over a larger area, reducing the stress on the plastic during any flexation. At this point, I realized that if I was going to actually use this camera for hours at a spooky location, I had to rework the ergonomics. When your wrist bends backwards, it becomes uncomfortable pretty quick under such a large load like this camera. To fix that, I redesigned the handle so the wrist could remain at a more neutral position. Instead of relying on smaller muscles in the wrist and forearm, the new angle allows your arm and bicep to do most of the supporting of the assembly. Additionally, people with different heights will need to adjust the angle of the screen, and if the screen is glued onto the assembly at a fixed angle, you might have to bend your neck, which will get uncomfortable, and something I saw Zach Bagans having to do a lot. So I used a ball and socket joint to allow for the tablet to not only be replaced if it breaks or something, but to allow for angling. In this cross section, you can see the lower T-nut and how it slides into place through the battery compartment and captures the 1/4 inch by 20 handle from the inside. On top, a second T-nut secures the ball mount to the assembly. The battery pack is held in place with a friction fit, allowing it to be removed or replaced without any tools. And the handle sits at a comfortable 30 degrees relative to the horizontal. I also wanted the wiring to look as professional as possible, so I disassembled the Kinect and soldered directly onto the 8-pin Molex Kinect using a heavy 14-gauge power cable and a cut USB cable. This kept everything self-contained and gave the camera a much finished and cleaner look. For the future, I would probably use a smaller battery pack to reduce the overall weight. It approximately weighs 1,500 grams, or about 3 pounds and 8 ounces. I would also choose a different tablet than the Surface Go 2. The Surface only provides about 5 hours of battery life, which isn't very ideal for a long, spooky investigation. I also ran into several issues getting the older Kinect drivers to work with Windows 11, due to its core isolation security feature. If you must update to Windows 11, or are forced to, I was able to fix it by disabling core isolation, rebooting, reinstalling the drivers, and then re-enabling core isolation. The downside, though, that I've noticed is that every future Windows 11 update will break the driver again, and I had to repeat the process. And for this reason, I left the Surface on Windows 10. Thank you for watching, and I hope you stay tuned for more things that I may make that might be spooky or not. Bye.
My name is Zach Bagans. I never believed in ghosts.